And I will begin. Hello, it's so good to have you here, Janese.
Hi, great to be here. Thank you, Terry, for having me.
Oh, it is such a pleasure. And I feel like you are on one island all the way in Hawaii, and I'm over here in Bali, Lembongan, Nusa Lembongan Island. And I feel that there's going to be such a spiritual energy coming through this podcast today. So, for those who are really ready to sink your teeth into some Kahuna wisdom and shamanic healing of the greatest, where you can heal so much and just feel the energy through listening to this podcast. Get yourself a drink and relax, sit back and enjoy. So, wow. So, you came from a corporate background, Janese, and decided in 2018, after being a loans officer and in your involvement in sales and marketing, you say spirit pushed you toward facing your God given purpose. And sometimes spirit has an unusual way of doing this, which you probably know. And this is one of the first big breakthroughs that I want to say to the listeners, and that is that Janese encountered all her mother wounds and all her karmic wounds coming out. Do you want to tell us what that was like and what you went through?
Yeah, woo. So, as soon as like in 2018, I was guided, like I was doing this work way long, like for 13 since 2010. And I was doing this in hiding. People who knew what who I did readings, knew they would reach out. But, it was more like a hobby. And then in 2018, Spirit was like, no, you're ready. You need to do this. And just like pushed me. And I was like, okay, I had no plan. And I just went. And as soon as that happened, it took me like a year, and I was kind of fimbling around things, kind of figuring things out, being on the online space and stuff. And then I hired my very first coach, and from there she helped me create my program, and that's where I needed to face my mother wound, and it was just coming at me full force, left and right, because
Wow.
what I was doing and what I was saying and what I was bringing through me, I wasn't owning it. I wasn't stepping into that. And it was that kahuna piece. I wasn't owning it. I was still ashamed. I was still in fear of it. I was still hiding. And even
Mm,
talking about it to people, I couldn't talk. I couldn't even be on my first podcast. I was like a mute. Like in my group trainings, I could not speak. I couldn't. So she had to help
wow.
me, coach me to reclaim the kahuna power in my body. And once that happened, oh, like I had like so much like downloads coming in and reclaiming that. And then I had to face my karmic wound with my mom because I started posting. And of course, I had to talk about it. And my mother did not like that. And so I made it. So I knew I was doing something right, right? Um,
Oh, absolutely. Now, just so our listeners, because I know you can help so many people, and when they hear shamanic healing, for some people, the kahuna wisdom, they may not understand what these wisdom secrets are. So let's start with the kahuna wisdom keeper. So tell the audience exactly what the kahuna wisdom is all about.
okay. So Kahuna in Hawaii, where I'm from, it means priestess, priest, shaman, someone who has connection to the spiritual world. So back in the day, if we were still living back in, the times in old Hawaii, I would be that shaman that you will come to seek guidance, seek knowledge. And that comes in from my family, from my mother's side of the family. So it's a generational thing. My grandfather did it, great grandmother, down the road. And so what I do is I use the connection of my ancestors, guidance of my ancestors, with energy healing and clairvoyant guidance, all in one, to assist and help my clients.
Now that is amazing. And I just want to pause you there for a moment, because I'm wondering, is it possible that there are people out there that have this sense of, that channeling with Kahuna, with being a shamanic healer, with being a high priestess or a priest, and they don't know it?
Absolutely. I see that all the time. All the time. We
Okay,
all are.
so what happens? What are the symptoms? What are the symptoms of someone who might be going along in their life and really battling and not recognizing that piece?
Well, a client came to me and she just told, like, she had it all together. She had the family, she had the career, she had everything, but inside of her, she still felt like there was more. There was more to her. And she wanted more, but she just didn't know what more was. Until she started, like, we started talking, and then all of a sudden she goes, oh my God, I think I have that too. I think that's in my family as well. And I was like, oh. And so we started working together. And this was after, like, she's done her corporate job. She was a mortgage broker. The industry went down. She was kind of stuck in limbo. Her kids was grown. They were out of the house. So she was an empty nester. She had her husband, and so she was like, I don't know what to do next. She tried to apply at jobs, but she just didn't feel that was her calling. Like, she just didn't feel it. So it was something like sound deep down inside that she just knew there. What all she kept saying, like, those was great. My family survived on that. I was able to create a beautiful life, but I knew there was something inside of me that was still locked. That was still that needed to be freed.
And that can be frustrating, because I feel like symptoms of it. I'm kind of like sort of talking a little bit more about myself here, but some of the symptoms that I felt a little bit of the oddball, like the black sheep, didn't quite fit in. And yet when I did fit in, I was like the top leader, and everybody thought that I had magical powers, like people who knew me really well. I don't mean that literally, but I remember a time when I was very, very young, and even we were teenagers, and my cousin's dog was dying. And the first thing they did was they called me up, and I'm 16 years old, and they say, you need to get around here right now, because something's wrong with our dog. And I remember thinking afterwards, that dog, I knew straight away he was going, that was it for him. But it was, the interesting part is that they thought that about me. It was like they knew it. They thought, Terry's the one that's going to help us here. So there was always that kind of energy. But then there was the negative stuff, like being connected with the wrong people. Like, I would get connected with people that you would freak out if you knew some of the connections that I was having with people. But now when I look back to some of those motley friends and kids that were even in crime, I realize that I had done that as a young girl, a teenager, because I had this untapped desire to transform people. And without fail, if I did get close to someone, they would change. There would be that element of bringing out their best. So I mean, I was a young girl, of course. Can you talk about your clients, perhaps, you know, when they you know, in that untapped realm? What are the
Yeah.
symptoms? What are they feeling? Because these are the people that are going to listen to this podcast and go, I think I need to see Janese.
Yes.
I think this lady needs to really help me because this is what has been going on. Tell us about that person.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my clients and myself too included, like they would have people, they would attract, naturally magnetically attract people, and they would be solving their problems. So they seem to be the one in their family that everybody goes to. They always have guidance. They're always fixing other people's problems. They're always putting other people first. You know, they were always looked at the weird one, but not so weird. They don't really get you, kind of like we like you, but we don't like you, kind of thing. I don't get,
I'm
you know.
laughing because this is so true.
You know, so we'll get that. They, and also they would be like overachievers, like complete anything that they put their mind to, they would like get to the top as fast as they can, and then even when they get to the top, they're like, oh yeah, this is not it. And they just, there was just this hole or this sense of unfulfillment that they were constantly striving for, constantly looking for, because they knew something inside was missing, right? And also like they just had this really very tuned in, like very empathetic, but they didn't know how to like guide or use that empathy into like their own self. They gave it
Yeah.
away, or you know,
Yeah.
it will turn into something that they didn't want, so they will shy away from their or their feelings and their emotions, and they will shut that down.
It's
And
interesting too that, you know, you talked about yourself, so many wounds coming up and getting thrown at you as the universe mirroring to you, hey, Janese, hello. You need to see what your true gift is. Do you think that there's that frustration in this person, that they're doing what they're doing, but they're not in the right place, and they're feeling like there's this kind of, no, there's more, you know, peace? Like I can remember being a young girl when I came out of my college and everything else, and went into the 9 to 5 grind. Got sacked 8 times in a row from 8 jobs. If that wasn't going to kill anybody's, you know, self-worth, nothing was. So I had no belief in myself. But I remember my car breaking down one day, and I had to go to a home, and I remember knocking on the door and saying, can I borrow your phone? Because cell phones, I'm that old. Cell phones didn't exist when I was a young girl. And I remember seeing this woman, and she was free. She was like at home, and she was just doing her own thing. And I remember being on the phone to my parents saying, you know, come and help me out, and thinking and having that moment of thought of, I wished I was free like that, you know, where I could choose my own hours, where I didn't have to be 9 to 5, where, you know, so there was that deep dissatisfaction. How many people are dissatisfied, Janese?
a lot, so much. Oh, you're frozen.
Mm.
Yeah, a lot.
Oh.
There. Oh, you gave back. But
Mm.
yes, yeah. So many much people, men and women, are like they just know inside. Because even myself, I've ever since a little girl, I've always wanted to like be free, like this free, but I didn't know what that freedom was. I didn't know what that looked like, what that sense, but I knew that's what I wanted. So I became so independent and so like headstrong, and just so independent in myself, because I was searching for freedom. And I believe that is like our
Yes.
spiritual goal. That's where everyone is striving for, is that spiritual freedom. So yes.
Yeah, that calling, I hear that. And I feel that freedom is just such a big word here because, for freedom, it's like, well, what is your freedom? What is it that is really going to open the door to that freedom and truly set you free? So, karmic wounds, and when you decided to leave that corporate job and you had all your mother wounds come out and karmic wounds, tell us about that, because some people may not even know what a mother wound is.
Right. So the karmic wounds that was coming out at me was, I can't do it. Like, here's this thing that I want to achieve, but it would be so big that I didn't know how I was going to go through that. And I wanted some help. I wanted some guidance. I wanted my mother to be there. I wanted to know. I wanted someone to tell me that it was going to be okay and you got this. But that didn't happen. So I had to go work through that and be able to support my needs and support myself and become that support system for myself within. And being able to navigate and guide myself through the challenges that I was thrown at and that I was faced. And being able to go through that, but also not close my heart off. Not close off my heart to my mother, not close off my heart to the world, but still keep my heart open while going through the journeys or what was coming at me. And that was like the biggest trial, like really big.
Yeah. I mean, even as an NLP practitioner, right, trainer, and with all the experience that I had and I've got as a hypnotherapist, I never knew about these mother wounds and these father wounds. And, there's even I guess, that healing, the womb healing for the woman, and even the womb healing for the man. And because a man comes from the mother's womb, right? And, they say that the egg of the grandmother is carried inside our gene. And so I only discovered womb healing very recently, and that just opened up a whole different world, because your womb, I discovered, and you may be able to talk us through this, was actually the sacral space. And even in the men and the woman's private organs, that's where the prosperity codes are.
Yes.
And that's where the self-worth lives. Like, it's our self-worth is kind of within that region of our body, and because that's our sexuality, right? Yeah. And can you talk us through this, like, if someone out there has no clue about what's this womb healing, the sacral space, what can you tell us about that?
So yes, that sacral space is so crucial and vital when you're doing, a lot of these healing, inner child work, shadow work, all of that. And it's because the womb is a creation. The sperm, the man part, it's creation. That is as spiritual beings, that is what we create life through. And when that part of us is tainted or wounded or hurt, it really causes your rest of your creations that what you want to create, money, health, wealth, everything comes from that seed, that original seed of creation, which is our divine creator, our divine right to create in this body. to create
Yeah.
this body. So all the wounds, that's how the wounds get passed down through generation through that seed of life. And when we carry that baby is also carrying your wounds as well as your if they're not healed, because then it goes into the
Mm,
DNA and it goes into the blood cells and then the bones, and that goes into the body. Because when
wow.
we come from a great pond of possibilities of creation, like the ocean, as you would say. And then we come down as spirit into a soul into this body. And the body lies all the karmic patterns, lies all the past wounds, past life wounds, past, so you also have past life wounds that come in from the spirit, but you also have past life from your family as well.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, this is so spiritual. This is so powerful. And I also understand that, there are people out there that might really go, well, could this be, true? But the fact is, we are a spirit. We are a spirit in a very frail human body. And when I began stepping into the spiritual element of myself, that's when I really began to expand. When I decided that I would put my faith in my guidance, which is my inner GPS, which I believe comes from that gut place and the womb and that sacral space of following that. And when I know that people are attracting, you would know very much about this, attracting patterns over and over and over again. And when you realize that this is really karmic patterns, you know, um, this is where things begin to really take place. But talk us through how the karmic patterns put you into a very, I guess, a very challenging position with your health, and how that affected your health, and yet how, you have been able to heal yourself. So you literally do not show the symptoms of what maybe the medics are talking about. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually give you the stage so the internet is strong, because I feel this piece is very important. I'd love you to talk about your story, what's happened to you in your body, how that has transcended and really, really dissolved, cleared, and transmuted into your incredible story. But I will be backstage and giving you the full stage for this strong.
Oh, now? All right. So I was diagnosed in 2021 with breast cancer. And how this showed up for me was, this was a wound that got passed down from my family, which not only myself, but also my aunts, my great aunts, and so forth, they also had breast cancer as well. But when I took a little deeper and I started to doing the energy work around the cancer and how it got developed, and what's the lesson here for me to clear, transmute, and transform, it was for me to stop over giving and stop. And this was the time for me to nurture myself. This is a time for me to step into my own mother, to mother me, and to really heal that deep karmic wound. And when I got diagnosed, my mother and I just came together and healed this relationship between her and I. So before I even found out my diagnosis in December, we came together and we worked it out. that needed to happen before I went onto this journey with cancer. That I was
Wow.
my body needed that support of my mother without that part interfering with my healing. So when that happened, then I was able to stand into this journey of healing and going through that. And what I got out of that I needed to do what was right for me, making decisions that was right for me, and not allow medical to tell me what I should do, how I should do it, not what my family wanted me to do, or what it was my decision, how I seen me going through this and what was right and fit for me,
Wow.
and
That
making
is
those decisions.
powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
did you hear that? People. Because I know that in the world today, there is too much disease. And disease starts with the mind, but doesn't really start with the mind. It may be starting with the seed that is in your DNA. And then as that evolves, if you are not really listening into your higher calling, it can manifest and show up in your body as a wound. And they do say that breast cancer is definitely a mother wound. And I know my own mother, who is, thank you, praise you, God, healed today, a total success story, had that. And my mother had, she's such a beautiful woman, but she had some deep issues, I know, with her own mother, discovering at the age of 21 that, like, a complete identity change, where she suddenly found out that she was given up and in an orphanage for the first 2 years of her life. And so when her mother told her this story, she was 21 years of age. And there's no doubt, as beautiful, gracious, and all the things that my mum was and is today, there was those very, very strong mother wounds with being given up by her own mother, who was only a 15-year-old girl when she fell pregnant. So there was a whole lot of elements that needed to be reconstructed and deconstructed. And, this is very prevalent. So you are another absolute miracle case, because despite the fact of what the medics have said, here you are, completely pain-free, symptomless, and living your life and calling in that golden light that we know no disease can live in: love. It cannot survive. So you also, just going back a little bit too, you came from a family that shunned the shamanic elements. How did you manage to get through that?
Well, as a child, I I have this clear vision as a child at 8 years old. I was really young around that time, and I seen a woman come to visit me. I didn't know. I just seen a woman. She was very sweet and kind. And I woke up in the morning and I would tell my mother, like, "Hey, this woman came to visit." And she like looked at me. She was like, "We don't do that. That's just," like, she looked at me completely weird. And then years later, I went to my aunt's house, her sister, and there was a picture of this woman on the wall. And this woman, what I go, "Who is this woman?" She goes, "That's your grandmother." And so my mother's was given away at birth, so she didn't have a picture of her mother. So when I went to my aunt's house, there was a picture of this woman on the wall, and I asked her who she was, and she told me. And she goes, "Why?" I go, "Well, she comes to visit me." And I talked to her. She immediately shut me down, was like, "Nope, we don't do that, we don't talk about that, no." So since then, I would have visions, I would have feelings, but I wasn't able to express that. So moving forward, what got me into doing this and how I was able to get through all of this was I ended up having my son at 16 years old, very young. And I wanted to be a different mother than what I was shown. So because of
Mm,
that, I was put into certain situations in my life along my journey that pushed me into this line of work. And it wasn't something that I chose. It chose me, and
I love that.
I ended up doing it, and here I am. When I
Wow.
was when I was working at one of my corporate jobs, I used to work for a hotel. there was a there was a health fair, and in this health fair there was this woman waving her hands in the air, and I was like, this woman is weird, this woman is crazy, stay away from her. But my soul knew, so I sat in front of her and she goes, would you like an aura healing? I had no idea what an aura was. I don't know, my family, we never expressed that, so I didn't know what aura, chakras, any of that. So but I said yes. In like less than 10 minutes, when she was done, she goes, how was your healing? Your healing's coming. How was it? And I was like, what did you do? And she was like, well, our energies are like sponges. So we pick up energies around in our environment and we hold on to that. So I just helped you release it. And I was like, oh my God, at that moment, my heart was open. This is when I first tasted freedom. What it was felt like in my body to have this freedom that I've been looking for. And then ever since then, I was hooked. I'm like, I need this. This was my drug. I need this. And so this,
Oh, yeah, I can so relate to that. You know, I've been in this, they call it the island of the gods here, and it's the energy is phenomenal. And I found, like my second home in Ubud, and there are so many shamanic people and Western shamanics. And we were doing cacao ceremony and, just being in that flow of just, going through sound healing, meditation, and the whole energy that shifts. There is no other feeling of freedom when you can stand up, and even if you can't sing, you suddenly just sing like a archangel. And if you can't dance, you begin to dance like you are this beautiful angel that's just, predestined. And it's just so liberating. But, you also mentioned about you birthing your son at a very young age. And then you mentioned to me that he had to clear some father wounds. Would you mind talking me through, firstly, what were the symptoms that were showing up for him, as a boy, as a young man, and what happened that he was able to get the healing? Talk me through even the process.
oh yeah. So at six, so if any of you guys have children, but at the time my son was 16, and as a teenager, they think they know everything, right? I was that age. I thought I knew that I got everything figured out. Anyways, my son was the same. He didn't want to ask him to do his chores. He would fight me. He wasn't doing very well in his grades, all of it, you name it. So his report card came in, and I went to him and I said, hey, buddy, this is not acceptable. It escalated to a blown out yelling match, toe to toe, blood red anger from head to toe. And so I told him to go into his room. I told him to just sit in there, no punch, because he goes, Mom, I want to punch something. And I could see this red eye bulging out. But I knew that it wasn't him. I was already going through my clairvoyant training for about 4 years. So I was already kind of on this path. So so I could see his in his eyes, like, Mom, I just want to punch something. And I told him, punch me. He goes, no, I'm not going to punch you. So I told him, I go, you know what? Go in your room, cool down. Don't punch anything. He goes, okay. So he went, I left. I needed to cool off. So I left for the day. I left, drove, cooled down. I came back home to cook dinner. He comes out of his bedroom as I was in the kitchen, and he goes, Mom, I'm sorry, but I need help. And he pointed to his head. It goes, something's not right. I need help. Can I please go to meditation and clairvoyant training just like you. Can I go? So he asked me at 16. And so he did. He did 12 weeks. In this 12 weeks, he turned his life around. He needed to deal with the anger from his father, that unprocessed anger that was just in him, that he needed to just like process and transmute and clear that without being destructive. Because this is something that my son and I, we understand. We talked about it, that his, like, he needed to learn how to channel his anger, not into a destructive way, but in a way that was going to help him heal and move forward and set boundaries. That's what anger is, right? It's just a boundary violation, or something is not safe, something's not right. So anyways, so working with him through that has helped him. He's 26 now, and he was able to create such a beautiful life for himself at 26 years old. You know, he has a beautiful career. He bought himself a home. I'm so proud of him. Like he's just amazing.
Wow.
But at 16, he made that decision on his own. He's like, Mom, I need this. I need help. So
That's
he went,
phenomenal.
and he's just turned his whole life around just like that.
Yeah.
Just with a whole
Yeah, and
different
look how many parents are out there with, sons that they may not know what to do with because they've got all this anger built up, and then they turn to drugs or they turn to the wrong things to try and comfort themselves. So this is incredible. Are you open to helping those kinds of people as well? Like if a woman comes to you and says, look, I've got a 16-year-old son,
Yeah.
can you work through that with them? Are you open to that?
Yes, I'm open to that. Yes.
Because I feel that that's huge. And, if there are women out there listening in, men out there listening in, remember you have those wounds, and this could be as simple. It could be one decision that will change the entire trajectory of your life, your children's life, that person. So what a gift of absolute love. So, now that we understand that that's what the karmic healing is all about, I am sure our listeners are a lot more, if anybody didn't know, they're a lot more up with it. And obviously now we know that you have the clairvoyancy as well, to be able to really intuitively and insightfully give people the wisdom and help with the direction that they're going into. And, you were talking to me before the podcast about breaking the ancestral limitations. And I was really curious to know, well, what does the, say, woman that may not even know about this kind of energy healing suffer? And you were talking me through what some of those symptoms are, like hiding, playing small, people pleasing, worrying, having the self doubt, not having a voice. What is it that happens to them once you heal them of those karmic wounds? What happens to that woman at the next level?
They get to stand into their power and claim their power and be who they truly meant to be, with unapologetically, and just shine as bright so that they can be the leaders for their family, and they can show them a different way, they by being a different version of what they're used to. So she just becomes more her. I had this woman come back to me years later and just was so grateful and so thankful that she's able to like say what she wants, unexpressed, unfiltered, without feeling guilty. That's one thing that a lot of the women suffer from, is just feeling guilty, this immense guilt. And she was able to heal her worry, worrying about what's going to happen to her children, worried about what this person thought of her. She was able to let go a lot of those limits and just be, be her and not feel guilty about it or shame.
Wow. I love that. And I guess that gives a really good summary of why, if that woman wants to go all in, why she can step into her full potentiality and activate her voice and claim her power. And I know that's exactly what your program is. But you know what I really love about you, Janese, is that, and it's very typical of spiritual healers, and the more of those people that are really going with more flow and their inner wisdom than that are just going by strategy, doing it because this is a job, doing this because they need to earn the money. This is a real calling on your life. And what I love for that woman is that if you decide to step into Janese's space, you don't have to just go all in, but I can tell you you're going to want to. The thing is that Janese, at the all in, you are going to be absolutely immersed in something very powerful. We're talking, you are, very generous in one-on-one sessions, energetic videos on a weekly basis, master classes, fortnightly with hot seat calls. And even the fact that you are making yourself accessible, which is just unheard of, by most people that are just saying, this is what you get, and then like it or lump it. But you actually receive from Janese the ability to have private real-time coaching with a turnaround of any questions, anything that as you're moving along, because I know how this work manifests and shows up. So, Janese is there with a 72-hour turnaround. But you know what I love even more so is that you have the opportunity of stepping in and having that taste test. And Janese has kindly said that she will offer a session, your first session, absolutely free, where you can come in and you can choose whether it's energetic work. She may guide you into what you need by asking you a series of questions and then allowing you to make the decision, whether it's insight into your purpose, whether it is insight into your energy and wanting to shift that. So, last words, Janese. You say that you also bring people into that one place and one space, but you individually support them with their own unique issues that come from their own DNA, ancestral lineage. What would be some of the words that you would say to people to perhaps really guide them in their life? If there's a man or a woman out there, or even a youngster out there that is really battling in their life, what would you say to them?
I would say to them is that you're more than what you think you are. You're more than what your challenges that you're facing right now. You're more than, your situations, because you are this beautiful, powerful, bright light. And you just need to remember that. And I know things do get tough and things will always happen. That's how we grow, that's how we change. But it's how we go through them and we learn these and we just go through them with a different set of lens and a different set of thinking. And that's what
Wow.
I'm here to help you shift that and your energy.
Yeah, I love that. You are not your emotions. You are that beautiful soul that deserves to expand and come into your own. So, if you have not subscribed to this podcast, I am sure by listening to this piece, you're not going to want to miss an episode. So, make sure you subscribe. And Janese, where can people best locate you?
You can
How can
locate me.
people? Yeah.
I do have several social media accounts. I do have a business page. It's the Kahuna Wisdom Keeper, and you can be friends there. I do have a group, Unapologetically You, if you're looking for support or supported container. Get some tips and trainings from in there. That's more closed in. I have a group on Instagram.
Beautiful. And so, Janese, we're going to put all your links here. So that person, if you're watching, you can simply click so that you can get in contact with this beautiful woman. She is the real deal. This is the woman that is got this in her blood. So if you are feeling called to really rise up and expand and claim your power, this woman is definitely your person that you're going to want to see. So thank you so much, Janese. This has been so good. I could stay here for the rest of the day talking with you. I feel so
Yes.
aligned. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Well done.